really didn't feel like she went out of her way to really pay homage or respect to this source material at all. I feel like she had a song that she wanted to do, and she thought, oh, I'll just use this and just put this on it. And I just didn't. I didn't feel like there was really a whole lot of thought. It's like the feeling when somebody comes in and does a rap verse over something, and it's like, I'm this and I'm that, and they're just literally talking about themselves. It's something that they pulled out, of their drawer from their, list of whatever these lyrics that they had was, and they gave no thought to the song that they were rapping over, and they just didn't respect. It doesn't live together well. Welcome to another episode of I'm All Over the Place with Dara Star Tucker. I'm joined by my co-host.
Hey there, Greg Bryant.
Mr. Greg Bryant. Thank you all for being here. We have got some hot topics for you today. I think this is just Hot Topic Day.
Is it really?
I think so. There's a lot of stuff popping off recently.
The Phoenix show, because there are a lot of folks that are attempting comebacks, but it's yet to be seen whether their public will accept them.
Very interesting. We've got a couple of those, and then we've got a wild card as well. So, the order, I don't know. We'll leave that up to you, Greg. What's been going on in our lives, first of all? I mean, are we good? Is everybody good?
Yeah, I hope you guys out there are good. Thank you for all of the reflections. Dara shares them with me. And it's really awesome to see the level of engagement that is starting to happen with the repeat viewers and listeners, whether you're seeing this on YouTube or listening on your podcast provider of choice. Really quick though, Dara, so you don't forget, tell them where to find you if they're just finding you for the first time.
My socials, I'm Dara Star Tucker. That's with 2 R's, DaraStarTucker, Dara Star Tucker on TikTok and on Twitter, I believe, on Facebook. I'm Dara Star Tucker, and then it's Dara Tucker elsewhere, YouTube, Dara Tucker B on Instagram.
Exactly.
Look for me any and everywhere.
If you're on YouTube, she'll put the supers down so you can follow them easily. But Dara, you brought something in to me this morning. Beyonce's back.
Beyonce is back. I mean, she's, I think the undisputed queen of the millennials anyway. And so, I remember Beyonce from way back. It's just kind of funny being like a Gen Xer and remembering her from when she really first got started with Destiny's Child and all that stuff. And it's like, I've always had the utmost respect for her talent, but to see like the level that she's been lifted up to with, now that the millennials have come of age, she's just, she's the unquestioned queen, and she can do no wrong.
As a side note, you actually saw Beyonce live many years ago. What album was she on? Do you even remember?
I think Dangerously in Love, her very first album, which is really the only one that I've super gotten into. But yeah, I saw her in concert, and that was 2008. And her father had to come down, because you were working for Fisk University at the time. Her dad had to come down and give Fisk University a bunch of tickets. This is the reason I went. And the venue, where did she play? Bridgestone in Nashville.
In Nashville, when we were living in Tennessee.
was only probably half full. This is before she did the Super Bowl performance. I don't even remember. I think that might have been 20. I don't remember when the Super Bowl was, but it was she was a big star.
Yeah.
But she was still struggling to draw a crowd, at the level that she should have been pulling at, I guess. So yeah, we got very good seats to go see the show, but then we get there and the stands are just almost completely, the stands were actually fairly full, but the expensive seats in the middle section on the floor were just almost completely empty.
That's a trip.
And her dad had to tell the folks from the stands, like, hey, you all come down here and fill this in. We're not gonna allow this to be looking quite this empty down from. We want some energy down here. So he had to, basically they just got rid of the whole idea of assigned seating at Bridgestone. Yeah. And this is like a venue that seats how many people?
At least 30,000 people in Nashville,
20, maybe 20. You think maybe 20? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my numbers are a little fuzzy.
Maybe 20,000.
But this is the premier venue in a strong mid-sized market. Nashville's market size has increased since then. Yeah. But it's amazing to think that then she was still having a bit of challenge filling up an arena.
I think she got rid of her dad as her manager right after that. Okay. That was the last kind of, gasping breath of her father trying to manage her. And she took her career in a very different direction after that. And it's worked for her.
It has. And, I'll self-admittedly am an outsider to a lot of more music that could be considered pop, or the hot R&B. I know a little bit about it, but, I'm an improvisational music dude. I'm a classic music guy. But I appreciate, and I always have, the level of forward thinking that she has brought to her performances. Before you saw her, her band was primarily men. When you saw her, primarily male driven, backup musicians. Fast forward to an all-female band of killer musicians that had never been done before in the pop market, especially the African-American pop bands. An all-female backing band, she's the first at that. You could argue that she's also led trends musically with, I forget which university she used, but the homecoming video, having an HBCU-centered marching band as her primary ensemble. That's never been done. So
I think it might be Texas State.
Okay,
University,
but it's trend setting is what we're talking about here. Not being the follower, being the first in line, scrapping the idea of normal PR. Yeah, I may not be the huge Beyonce fan, but I've been watching. Releasing an album at midnight, no one knows there's an album coming. Oh my God, there's a new album. Everybody runs to the streaming services. Everybody runs to buy this album without any mention of PR. We're talking about trend setting here.
So you might be able to tell we're kind of blowing this balloon up as big as it can get so we can pop it right before your eyes. We just wait for the very loud backfiring sound that you're about to hear, because it's about to change directions very quickly.
Just out now. And what's the title?
Renaissance. I think it's just called Renaissance. And I'm no Beyonce expert either. I don't claim to be. I have opinions about very specific things. I really, really loved her debut solo project, Dangerously in Love. And this one's called Renaissance, I think. And highly anticipated.
But what you want to talk about is something that really amazed me. The Clark sisters, gospel group, gospel royalty, announced 2 days ago that they had been sampled, essentially, in one of the album's premiere songs, and they were really happy to share it with their social media. Tell me a little bit about what that means to someone like you, who is a dyed-in-the-wool gospel fan and a Clark sisters expert.
Yeah, it was last week, I think, that the lawyer for the Clark sisters announced on their social media that one of their songs was going to be sampled in one of the songs that made the final track listing for Beyonce's Renaissance album. And this was a song called Center of Thy Will. And this is from a really old album of the Clark sisters. I'm not exactly sure the year that it came out, but it's from an album called You Brought the Sunshine. It's got to be late 70s, probably 1978 or something like that. And so, yeah, of course, Clark sisters fans were going crazy. And the Clark sisters, if you don't know, are like a legendary family in gospel music and just trend setting and, groundbreaking and all of this stuff. Twinkie Clark was the main writer for her sister's group, and she wrote this song called Center of Thy Will. And Beyonce used this song in a song of hers called Church Girl. And so, of course, we're all kind of waiting with bated breath to see what this is going to turn out like. And a lot of, I'm seeing church folks posting about this on Facebook and elsewhere today. And so, my opinion is my own, but really where I landed with it was like, this song, I don't think we're going to be able to play even a snippet of this for YouTube because it's going to get us flagged for copyright. But, you can seek this out. It's called Church Girl by Beyonce. And just, the lyrics were just, I put up a Facebook status. It was like completely vulgar, completely like, it just was like such the antithesis of what this song that she sampled from the Clark sisters represented. Mm-hmm. The song from the Clark sisters, it says something to the effect of, Lord, I just want to be highly favored in thee. Lord, make me, shape me, and, keep me in the center of thy will. I mean, this is sacred stuff for me. This is like, this is the holy grail for me. Yeah. As someone who is, as you said, dyed in the wool, gospel fan, having lived in Detroit at the height of the Clark sisters' popularity. and the Winans popularity, and Rantal and all those groups up there that just from Detroit commissioned, who were at just the epicenter of what contemporary gospel music was in the 70s, 80s, 90s. But this is stuff that we hold dear.
Mm-hmm.
And for Beyonce to take this and make it into like this twerking anthem, it's like, I actually don't have an objection to this, classic kind of sacred music being taken and tricked out and, turned out and like, let's do something edgy. Let's do something contemporary with it. Let's make a new statement. I don't actually have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the spirit of the thing?
Mm-hmm.
Where did it come from? I think I'm reminded of the Jay-Z song, The Story of OJ.
Oh yeah.
Which heavily sampled Nina Simone's For Women.
Mm-hmm. Good example.
And that to me, that song carries, it's not a gospel song, but there is a sacredness about that song. It's meaningful. It has a real message. And I feel like the statement that she was making with the For Women song that Nina Simone was making was about Black women and their treatment in society, the various representations of Black women, and what that kind of meant to the progression of the state of Black womanhood in the United States of America. Well, I feel like what Jay-Z did was he made a statement about the progression of Black men in America.
Yeah.
And he tricked it out and he made it his own, and it was, there's a contrast and it's unexpected and it catches the ear, and it's it carries a punch and
Yep.
it hits you upside the head.
Yep.
In much the same way the For Women did, but it's still his own statement.
Exactly.
So I don't have a problem with
Yeah.
the new statement being made from
Yeah.
the old material, but keep it in the spirit of the thing and, make further commentary on it. Don't just use it just to use it.
Sure.
I feel like,
Well, the best thing that I found, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the best thing that I could draw parallel-wise was that Beyonce's song essentially is describing what it was like for certain folks, in our generation that may not have grown up, whatever you want to call it, super spiritual or super holiness or super religious or what have you. But part of the culture was Saturday night party, Sunday morning going to church. Just that simple. It was no statement on what the Clark sisters were speaking about deeply with their connection to the Creator. This is just a societal commentary, reminisce, basically. But I agree with you. I feel like there isn't enough parallel drawn to take something that was that deep or that emotionally and spiritually charged and just to put it in this new context that is art for art's sake. And it's really a quilt collage. We were talking earlier about some of the other tunes that were used and interpolated and sampled. DJ Jimmy from New Orleans, 1992, 93, whatever. It was a club banger. This song has some of that in there as well. So there's this quilting, if you will, between gospel, New Orleans bounce, and whatever's now trap or whatever you want to call it. And I guess artistically, you could argue that it's representing different catalogs of Black American music. But I agree that there's not the strong parallel that Jay-Z had. And I would still lean towards his example of using something that's edgy and new, but still parallel to the original message. But it's the Clark sisters. It's hard to really capture any of the original message like they did because they were so good at that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's ways to comment on it and do that in your own way, in a way that feels relevant to the culture now. I'm not going to tell, Beyonce what her message needs to be, but there's even a way to do the message that she did, the idea of a church girl or someone who grew up in church and she's, living this life and doing what she's doing to hustle or get by or whatever. And, don't worry about the judgment that these people are placing on you and, you're just out having fun or whatever. I mean, there's a way to do that artistically. I just didn't feel that I really didn't feel like she went out of her way to really pay homage or respect to this source material at all. I feel like she had a song that she wanted to do and she thought, oh, I'll just use this and just put this on it. And I just didn't. I didn't feel like there was really a whole lot of thought. It's like the feeling when somebody comes in and does a rap verse over something, and it's like, I'm this and I'm that, and they're just literally talking about themselves as something that they pulled out, of their drawer from their, list of whatever these lyrics that they had was, and they gave no thought to the song that they were rapping over, and they just didn't respect. It doesn't live together well. That's my criticism.
The continuity is out. I would say, and I guess it may not be great to compare them, but I think Beyonce is a master entertainer. She's got the full package. I think Jay-Z is a master songwriter. And to judge Beyonce by Jay-Z's songwriting prowess may be errant.
Well, Beyonce is a songwriter as well.
Yeah, but I think her thing is more so it's the song plus the outfit plus the dance plus the hype. With Jay-Z, he can stand flat-footed on a stage and kill you with his lyrics, whether he's talking about himself or the culture or what have you. I really think that his skill, he doesn't have the dancing. He doesn't have the lights and the fire. He's an MC.
So you're saying Beyonce doesn't really have the lyrical or artistic depth.
I don't hear that.
To be able to weave a message with something that's, super deep or meaningful.
I think she can, but I think that time and time again, she has not done that. She's sacrificed the message for the package. And I'm not saying the package is wrong, because to see what we saw in Homecoming was a huge statement. JD doesn't do that. Beyonce does that. But on its own, by and large, song for song, music for music, take away the sensationalism, Jay-Z, in my opinion, is a better songwriter.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. Comparing Jay-Z's songwriting to Beyonce's songwriting, I don't know.
It's apples to oranges, probably.
Some folks will do a better job than others with material like this. But I think for me, I just feel like the biggest poo-poo head and the biggest old fart really making all this commentary about someone else's art, because I'm not even really a big fan of doing that. But because it just hit such a chord with me because of what she was pulling from.
And what the Clark sisters mean to you.
And yes, how sacred that is to me. I listened to it when I couldn't sleep at probably 2:00 this morning. I was like, oh yeah, Beyonce put something out. Let me go listen to, this is the Church Girl song. And I listened to a lot of the album before I listened to that particular song. It's an album full of club bangers, like, okay, great, not necessarily my thing, but fine. It's a disco album, essentially. And I get to that one, and I was sleepy, and it just woke me all the way up out of my sleep. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe the level of, I feel like it's a disrespect. It really is. And there's no way that the Clark sisters are going to be able to share this with their audiences at all.
Right.
When they showed themselves listening to, I don't remember if it was Kanye who put out, was it Snoop? I think it was Snoop who did a sample of their song.
Well, Jay-Z sampled them.
Okay, might have been Jay-Z. And they were in the back seat of the car, and they were listening to it, and they were just flipping out and like so excited, but it had all this cussing in it, which may have been bleeped out or whatever. But their fans just went crazy. And it's not so much that for me, just like, oh, there's curse words in it. It's not that big a deal for there to be curse words. And it's like, okay, that's the genre. That's fine. But like, is there a deep message behind it? Is there a real message behind it?
Right.
Curse if you want to, but like, give me some substance.
Story of OJ, like you already said.
Yeah, I just don't feel that there's a whole lot of substance in this, like, twerk fest. Beyonce can make the music she wants to make, but it's like, you don't need to use the Clark sisters to do that. You don't need to do that, Beyonce.
You could have chosen
You ain't need
anything.
to do that.
Yeah.
That was just a little.
Most people hear Hammond organ and
yeah.
think church. You don't need lyrics.
That was a little. It was just over the top for me. I'm sorry, Beyonce. I'm sure if the Beehive cared about our podcast, then it would be decimated by the time they hear this. But that's just my opinion about it. It's like, I'm not even really that churchy myself.
Oh yes, you are.
I'm not a traditionalist in that way.
No.
I'm not all that churchy. I'm not just,
But the music reaches you and endures.
Yeah, but I'm not. That doesn't mean that I'm churchy. I'm not churchy. I appreciate gospel music. It's really a music thing for me.
Yeah.
But I'm not just, saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost. I have my own issues and challenges with plugging into the church in general. So it's not just about carrying that flag. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like, you know, there's a certain integrity that you got to bring to the art that you do. That's it.
Absolutely. There's another really hot topic. Speaking of that Phoenix theme, Will Smith put out a video today on his Instagram. I was surprised to see it, for one, and I know maybe a million other folks were surprised. If you haven't seen it, let's pause now and see if we can't pull up just a touch of that to play for the people here in their hearing.
Reached out to Chris, and the message that came back is that he's not ready to talk, and when he is, he will reach out. So I will say to you, Chris, I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk. I want to apologize to Chris's mother. I saw an interview that Chris's mother did, and you know, that was one of the things about that moment. I just didn't realize, and you know, I wasn't thinking, but how many people got hurt in that moment. So I want to apologize to Chris's mother. I want to apologize to Chris's family. Spent the last 3 months replaying and understanding the nuances and the complexities of what happened in that moment. And I'm not going to try to unpack all of that right now, but I can say to all of you, there is no part of me that thinks that was the right way to behave in that moment. There's no part of me that thinks that's the optimal way to handle a feeling of disrespect or insults.
One of the optimum things that I have been meditating on, if Will Smith comes back and rises to the same level of acceptance and acclaim, does Chris Rock have to sign off on it?
Yeah, I think there definitely has to be some sort of public reckoning. I don't know about Chris Rock signing off on it, but there definitely has to be word from Chris Rock, because Chris Rock really hasn't he hasn't spoken on it yet at all. So yeah, I think there has to be kind of a fleshing out of all of this. I'm really surprised to see Will Smith come back so quickly. I kind of fully expected him to lay off for a good year. That was kind of my prediction. It was like he's going to lay low. Then after a year, after people are really missing him, missing his face, and missing him being in the public eye, then he'll come back and it'll be like, oh, we miss this guy. We want to hear what he has to say. So he came back a little quicker than I would have expected, and I think a little quicker than he probably should have, saying things that he should have said immediately after the fact. You know, so there's kind of a double whammy there. You're back sooner than people have had the chance to miss you, but you're also saying things that you should have said literally the day of or the day after that this happened.
Yeah.
I don't have any particular criticisms for what he said. I didn't have any particular criticisms for what he said the night of, because he was in the moment and he said what he was really feeling in the moment, other than the fact that he didn't apologize to Chris.
That's a big thing.
Yeah, that's the main criticism. But, you know, I don't know. People just enjoy picking apart people's apologies these days, and I feel like we've just gotten past the point in our culture where people can apologize and be believed. Maybe because so many people have abused, you know, this public apology thing, and there's just so much PR around things like this that you just feel like you can't trust any of it.
Yeah.
And I get that. I mean, how did his apology come off to you?
The apology itself came off as premature. And the reason that I say that, I don't know Will personally. I've been a fan of his before most folks. I was cheering him on as like an 8-year-old when Rock the House and He's the DJ, I'm a Rapper was out. You know, huge fan of Jazzy Jeff and Fresh Prince. But I don't want to say that I don't see real-time reckoning going on. I don't think he recognizes the magnitude of what he did and what that represented, not just to black people, but for Hollywood and humanity. And to do that to someone who is on the same trajectory as himself. I think there is some real-time reckoning going on. And whereas there did need to be an apology perhaps a week after or a day after, seeing and understanding him, I see coherence, but I also see this figuring out in real time. Am I going to come back from this? That's what I heard. Mm-hmm. Without him saying it, without me trying to assess whether he's real or not. He didn't have to do it at all. He's courageous for doing it. I'm sorry. People will know he's not. No, he is courageous for doing that. He's got a lot on the line. And he is the one that is the greatest offender. But he still has a lot on the line. And there is a certain vulnerability in saying, I apologize. Or secondarily, I'm sorry. There's a vulnerability there that he's availing himself to. And Chris Rock, really, the ball is in his court at this point. He doesn't have to do anything. But to answer your question, I think Will is still thinking this through, asking himself some hard questions. And I'm not sure that he was really even ready today to do that. That's my opinion. I don't know him personally.
You don't know that he was ready to do what?
To make the apology today. It feels like a lot of real time. I know I should be doing this, but I feel certain feelings and I'm questioning why I feel these feelings and I'm not at a decision point.
Well, I don't know if I picked that up. I felt like he was, very, very unambiguously apologetic and very straightforward about that. And, he realizes the mess that has been made. And of course, his objective at this point, I feel like he's been doing a lot of personal work over the last several years, which he has made everyone privy to. If you've been watching and paying attention to Will Smith's social media, then we even watched the documentary that he made about I don't remember, he was trying to lose some weight at the same time as he was trying to write this book. And then we read the book, of course, or listened to the book. And we went to his book tour. And so, we've kind of seen the progression of what he has been, putting out there in terms of his own personal growth in the last several years.
I will say this, as I'm thinking more about it, I do think that he is contrite toward Tony Rock and toward Chris Rock's mother. I think that is genuine. But how we've read the book, we know that Will Smith loves to be in control. That's his thing. When he gets out of control or has to cede control to others, that trust thing, that comes harder for him. And he's having now to trust Chris Rock in a very direct and purposeful way that could impact his career severely. And I don't think that he's ready to do that.
That's interesting. I mean, there may be some gender politics at play that I don't quite understand, but that just kind of wasn't my perception really at all. It's like, he did what he did, and now he's got to grapple with it and reckon with it and figure out, how to move forward. He's got a career that he wants to continue. He doesn't want to be sidelined or waylaid for the rest of his career. He's got to figure out what's next. He's a doer. He's someone who's always looking at what's ahead. And so he's got to figure out the path forward. That's where he clearly is right now. What is the path forward? And Chris Rock is not as interested in helping Will Smith find his path forward. So Chris Rock will, it'll be a special, I'm sure. He's gonna find out how to milk this for everything that it's worth. He said he's not talking about it till he gets paid to talk about it. We actually just went and saw Chris Rock in concert last week. And so he just said, I'm fine. He didn't talk about the experience at all, which I don't, you can't blame him. It's like, I'm not here to be on display and, to make light of any of it at this point. I'm just trying to do my job. Can't blame him at all.
Yeah, not at all.
Maybe I'm just overly trusting, but I don't have any reason to feel that Will Smith, it was not sincere in what he was saying, is not sincere in being apologetic to Chris Rock. He said, there's no part of me that even thinks that it's okay to do what I did, and there may be some stubborn part of him that's like, yeah, I maybe he felt tough in the moment. But having 3 months to reflect, no, I don't think Will Smith is I don't think he's having any problem acknowledging that what he did was absolutely wrong.
I think there is a genuine level of embarrassment, and I believe him when he says he's trying not to feel shame. He's trying to move forward boldly. But I think that trust thing, especially with someone who he's proven that he really doesn't have that much truck with, that much trust for. Mm-hmm. I think that's difficult for him. And now that the ball is in Chris's court and Chris is taking his time, as he should, I think that bothers Will. And I don't blame him. I would not want to be in Will's position. I wish him the best, because I'm an admirer of his body of work, for the most part. But
I think we're just at a weird, I don't know. I'm just still concerned that we're at a weird point in our culture now where people just can't apologize anymore. It's a very, very concerning thing to me, I have to say, in general. When I see people making public apologies, and of course, like I said, there's always the PR element to it. People feel like they never fully can trust, but like, is there literally no room for people to be remorseful, apologetic? It doesn't mean everybody's going to have to embrace them after this, because clearly some of his fans are just gone for life because they have lost all respect for him. And that's understandable. But to be like, well, I just don't know, he just wants his career back and he's not really sorry and he just blah, blah, blah. It's like, can we just ever get to a baseline point where we accept, like, the person did wrong, they acknowledged what they did was wrong, they took responsibility for it, they apologized. Now, whether you want to pay attention to him or not after that is up to you. Mm-hmm. But can we ever just fully accept that somebody's apologized in this culture? I feel like that whole concept is just in question anymore. It's just doesn't really exist anymore. The idea of sincerely apologizing and people accepting that your apology is, accepting your apology at face value. Just doesn't exist.
My question is, why? Is that a result of everyone wanting to be right, or is it a result of people not having enough confidence in transparency or vulnerability?
Yeah, I think they're just, there have been so many like politicians that have cheated on their wives or, lied to the public. I think the public is just, they're just exhausted of being lied to and, taken for a fool, maybe. And it all kind of starts to ring false after a point, which is, it's just really sad to me that as a culture that we are just at a point where we don't have the time. We don't believe anyone, can be sincere in their apologies. Almost like, well, why apologize? Why wouldn't he just go on and live his life and keep doing what he's doing? Because the majority of the people who are listening to that apology are just ready to throw it out,
Here's a question I have for you. If you were advising Chris Rock, what would you advise him to do? What posture would you suggest?
I wouldn't advise him any differently than what he's doing right now. It's like, take your time, move at your pace. You don't have to accept, he's the one that was offended. We weren't necessarily. He doesn't have to accept anything. He can move at the pace he wants to. And if he wants to make a Netflix special out of it, or HBO, whatever, which it looks like that's what he's going to do, then, that's his prerogative. I think he's handling himself with a lot of decorum, actually, to not come and just make total,
He is. and he deserves his payday. But on the ethical side of things, do we have any responsibility, as we're limited purpose public figures? They are public figures.
Right.
What ethical responsibility do they have as human beings beyond the Netflix special to go into a barbershop somewhere and sit down and actually talk about it for real and to get cool for real, regardless of whether we even hear what the result was? Or do they have that responsibility?
I mean, I don't think anyone can demand that of Chris. I don't think anybody can demand that of Chris. I feel like he, ultimately he's the one that's been wronged in this situation. I mean, obviously he was, being disrespectful or whatever of Jada in the moment. But if you ever watch any award show ever, you know that this is what comedians do. They mess with people. They say, sometimes mean-spirited things, sometimes things that get laughed off. And, that's a whole other conversation, just comedians and what they get away with. But Chris Rock wasn't doing anything that was out of the ordinary. There was nothing abnormal about what Chris Rock was doing. There was something very abnormal and very out of the ordinary about what Will Smith did. And so, no, I don't feel like Chris Rock should have any obligation to extend forgiveness to Will Smith, unless he just, from a personal point of view, he just, feels like for their relationship or for the progression of either of their careers, that he just wants to do that. But no, I don't feel. What do you think about that? Do you have thoughts?
I feel like you touched on something that was really eye-opening for me. The fact that people are distrustful because so many examples, I'll use the word, in Hollywood, are so forced and fabricated that we can't accept someone's apology anymore.
Right.
I feel like on some level, as successful, middle-aged African-American men, there's got to be some forum for them out of the spotlight, out of the dollar signs, to sit down amongst a group of their peers and say what it is they need to say and express what they need to express and come to a mutual agreement, whether that is we shake hands and we go do a Netflix special, or we don't shake hands, we don't dig each other, but we're man enough to appear to each other to try to reconcile. I'm not suggesting, sit down with a preacher or Farrakhan or a counselor. I'm just saying, just as men out of the spotlight. And if they were bold enough to do that and have it taped or have someone, to report on that story, maybe it helps to erode some of the distrust around what you were talking about earlier. Everything is so Hollywood, so we can't apologize because it hurts our career, or it looks fabricated, or we can't believe it because it's in the big screen. Like, that's really what I'm questioning.
I just feel like our this generation is so cynical that there would be certain people. I mean, I think that would actually go a long way to, to get them both to the point of being able to rehabilitate their images, I guess. But then I would think that there would be a certain group of people who would be like, well, that's, this proves it was all a publicity stunt.
Agreed.
This proves that they were
Thank you.
in on it together, and they're going to go do a movie together, or they're going to do a comedy special together. And here we have the culmination of, what all this was really about. Here they are, selling tickets to this or that. So yeah, it's the cynicism of our age, I think. And, it's just...
And we have a right to be, because we've been disappointed so many times.
Yeah. I mean, our generation, one of our first memories of public shame is Bill Clinton. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. And then here he comes around and, when it's proven, our whole country was dragged through that scandal, just as we were kind of coming into a place of consciousness of, like, what is the world? And that's kind of ground zero for us.
Yeah, that's right.
And so when you have that as the baseline, then it's all kind of it's just askew, all of it.
Right.
It just all comes off as kind of false.
Right.
Which is unfortunate, because I feel like Will Smith and just, there's gender politics at play. There's gender politics at play, but then there are racial politics at play too. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Will Smith, he's one of our kings, in the Black community. And it's just a sad thing to me to see someone who has invested so much for so long be kind of cast aside in that way because of something, egregious. It was egregious what he did. But to see him be cast aside in that way is it's a tragic thing on a couple of different levels. It's not just a guy with a career, a star, who was making action films. Like, no, there's a handful of Black men. There's, what Black movie star has done what he's done?
Nobody.
Nobody. There is no one to compare to Will Smith. This wouldn't have even been the same if Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise had done the same thing, because they are not trailblazers. They're incredible at what they do, but they are not singular in what they have done. Will Smith is. So we can't afford to lose him. That's how I feel. We've lost Bill Cosby.
Yeah, we have.
We can't afford to lose Will Smith. So in that sense, I guess if Chris Rock felt, a deep responsibility in that regard, Will Smith, you are too valuable for us to just throw away. He could be a part of that rehabilitation for, on Will Smith's behalf, if he wanted to, if he's thinking in those terms, which he is not obligated to and probably won't be.
Good points. It's going to be good hearing from you this week on Finding Your Voice. Kim Burrell, gospel singer, Grammy-winning performing artist, trendsetter, but has come under fire in recent weeks also. Someone who you introduced me to back when we first got together. I was dazzled by her musicianship. But we've heard some unofficial reports and seen publicly that maybe she's not the nicest person to get along with. I don't know. I don't want to spoil your talk, but this is the part of the podcast that I like the most. So if you don't mind telling people where to find you again.
I am on TikTok at Dara Star Tucker, STARR. Instagram, Dara Tucker B. YouTube.com/Dara Star Tucker. Twitter, I think I'm there as Dara Star Tucker. Facebook, I believe I'm just Dara Tucker. But yeah, you can find me all over the place.
Come true. I need no soft lights to enchant you. Only grant me the right to hold you ever so tight.
Well, in this installment of Finding Your Voice, I want to talk about one of my favorite gospel singers and songwriters, Miss Kim Burrell, and the example that she has left for those of us who have chosen to be outspoken about our views while also presenting ourselves as musicians and singers. And sometimes, it can be very difficult to find that balance of like, can I line up with who you are, what I know of who you are as a person, versus what I know that I love about your music and the message that you present when you do your music. What do you do with that dichotomy that exists between those two things? And I'm sure there are people that have had to make that decision with regard to me on a much smaller scale, that have had to make that decision with regard to me and what I do. You know, they've always known me to be a singer, and, you know, my music was what it was. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're speaking out about how you feel about race, about culture, about these different political or religious issues. And then suddenly it's clouding that sense of what I know and what I love about you and your art. And I've had the same conflict with Kim Burrell. I'm going to play you a few of her comments, and then I'll come back to kind of give you my viewpoint of kind of where I land with her.
You know, sometimes before we get friends, we have to do an interview. How long have you been broke? How many times have you changed your name on your light bill? How many of your bills in your little cousin's name? Do you live in a trailer home or a house? You know, you understand. And it's not about status or material things. It's just about choices. You know, life is different now. And, you know, we are at church. Thank God we're here. Those of us who walk in by faith without a mask and no vaccine. And so we honor the Lord. God is good. I respect all of the men of God here and respect you. Can y'all clap so I don't feel strange right about now? Hopefully we'll get a chance to meet each other when y'all invite me to come to your church. I'm not as expensive as I seem. And so, I don't know, maybe you got a little left over from your PPP loan. Prayer, praise, and power. You understand? Amen. Isn't the Lord great? Amen. Because who likes to be told you're just ugly? No one likes to be told that. You know, especially when they have realized it. All right. Most don't get offended until they know the bad thing about themselves. And then somebody else recognizes and says, oh, I saw the ugly too. I just wanted to let you know. So anyway, y'all get that later. God is great. All of you are beautiful. I haven't chosen anyone to be ugly yet. God is good. God is great. You all look great. Most of you have on hats covering most of that anyway. Here's to you.
Okay, so those words were particularly ugly from one of my favorite singers and songwriters in the game, Kim Burrell. And I've already had my challenges with deciding how I will or will not plug into her, because this, frankly, is not the first time that she's come out and has made statements that I had personal conflicts with and that I have been very, very disappointed by. So I can't say that there is any ultimate place where I land. This is really a case-by-case situation. I had just sort of come out of my shell with her and was just allowing myself to kind of listen to a little bit of her music here and there, because she has laid low over the last couple of years. And then here she comes back with these sort of strident and just unkind statements, once again, just showing people, you know, a very, very ugly side of who she is. I think it's important to acknowledge that as ugly as that comes across to me, it's still just one side of Kim Burrell. I don't think that that is the entirety of who she is. And certainly when she makes such incendiary statements like that, then that's the kind of thing that the press will latch onto. Those are the kinds of things that go out to millions of people who aren't necessarily paying attention to every live stream that she does or every public appearance that she makes. We're going to know more about something ugly that she said than we will about the 101 very mundane or even loving things that she has said or done. So I acknowledge on one hand, this is not the totality of who she is. And what Will Smith did to Chris Rock obviously is not the totality of what he did. Most of the time when someone's caught in a scandal, there's a whole lot more to who they are than just the scandal. But where do you land when you find out that there's this ugly thing? Well, in the case of Kim Burrell, I think I'm going back into my shell. I think I got to go back into hiding with Kim Burrell. I don't think we can fellowship like that, because who you are as a human being and what you present as your art, to me, are sort of inextricably intertwined. You know, I had to go through the same thing with Bill Cosby. I had to go through the same thing with Woody Allen. The Woody Allen thing was more difficult for me than Bill Cosby. And it goes on and on and on. I've started a series on blackface. I'm going to be doing a little more commentary on blackface in old films, or just racism in old films, and, you know, trying to grapple with what some of these actors did or were in their personal lives or did in their art, people that I actually love. Like where do you land with that? And I think it's a case by case basis. I think in terms of what you allow with the performers that you plug into, I think you have to really know where your standards lie. And then you have to hold yourself accountable to live up to those standards in your private time, because no one knows what you're listening to necessarily. No one knows what you're watching. It really is your own personal business. But you get to decide. I don't subscribe to this idea that we get to dictate who listens to what based upon who's, the dreaded word canceled, based upon who's canceled and who's not. We all kind of land where we land. And the fact of the matter is that we allow certain behavior from some of the folks that we follow that other people would be aghast at. And other people allow behavior in some of the folks they listen to that we would be aghast at. So there really is no ultimate yardstick to say, this person should be allowed and this person should not be allowed. It really is a personal choice when it comes down to it. And, back in the day, the difference was it was not that we didn't have these conflicts. It was that we didn't know so much about people's personal lives. We didn't know so much about what they were doing. We didn't know so much about their politics, but today everything is streamed. Everything is on social media. Everything is broadcast to the public. And we know a whole lot more about the musicians, the artists, the actors, whomever that we follow than we ever did before. So we have to make decisions in the current age that our parents and our grandparents and great-grandparents never had to make. We don't know where Nat King Cole stood politically. We have no idea. We don't, Ella Fitzgerald never made any kind of statements about what party she was voting for. She never got the chance to say anything ugly in public because everything was controlled by PR agents back then. And, some would say that's as it should have been, and that's as it should be now. But that's not the age we live in, So we have to make those decisions, but they are personal. That's how I feel about it. It is a personal thing. And I know the personal stance that I take with people like Kim Burrell, who have been repeat offenders. And I think that's a lot of what distinguishes her from some others, and even from Will Smith. Will Smith has had an impeccable career, and his record has really been unassailable until now. And so I think to judge him by one awful experience versus judging someone like Kim Burrell by, multiple events and statements that would indicate that her values in many ways are not in alignment with mine. I think we have to consider that as well. It's like, who have they been over time? Is this one big mistake? Or is this a number of incidents that are telling you, as Maya Angelou says, when someone tells you who they are, believe them. So I think for me, Kim Burrell has told me who she is. It is as difficult to relinquish her music as it is for me to let go of Woody Allen's films. Like it's that level of respect. So just sitting with it, taking it in, and that conflict between personality and artistry, it will never be an easy thing to navigate. But, you have to know in terms of your own ethics and your values where you stand. Thank you all for being with me today. This has been I'm All Over the Place with Dara Star Tucker. I want to remind you that I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Dara Star Tucker. I have all kinds of exclusive content there that does not get posted on my socials, and we have good conversation over there from time to time. So follow me on Patreon if you are not yet, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of I'm All Over the Place. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.